Arteta! What a strike! What a screamer! Zola! And a fantastic goal! Arsenal back in it! And here's Limpar, lines it up, finds the net. Arsenal in front.
8 wins on the spin leaves Arsenal fans finding more and more creative ways to complain about performance. This is the Arsenal Vision post-match podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, and you can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. So if that sounded a little more stumbly than you're used to, that's because we are not only recording a podcast right now, but we are doing it live. So those of you who are listening live, welcome, thank you. Those of you who are listening not live, welcome, thank you. Basically, welcome and thank you to everyone, and enough about me. Let's talk about the guests. The guests include Tim. You can find him on Twitter, at Stilberto. Hello, Tim.
In
Awesome.
Springfield days.
Great. Are you here? You're here. Okay, good.
Yes.
Yes, good. And Clive, you can find him on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
Hello, indeed. Okay, so we're off to a flyer, kind of like the Arsenal. Let's do this. Let's get this out of the way. Let's do this right off the top so that everybody can just enjoy listening to the podcast. But we have some housekeeping. So a few things. First of all, over on the Patreon side, next week we will have In the Spotlight Mesut Ozil on Friday. Gosh, that's tomorrow. Today, if you're listening today, we're going to have Giant Cow Gunner says long-time listener, first-time caller. We're not taking callers. We are going to have Tim's preview video up on Patreon. This will get posted as a regular podcast, of course. So all of that good stuff is going to happen. A couple of things I want you to know. First of all, if you are a drinker of beer and a lover of beer, you should visit our friends at Beer 52. Go to beer52.com/vision. Is that right? I think that's right. Beer52.com/vision. Yeah, so beer52.com is the world's #1 craft beer delivery service, UK only, sadly, but you will get a free case of craft beer, plus a magazine and a snack. All you have to do is pay £2.95 shipping. But yeah, it'll be amazing. And this time you are going to get the winners from the Raise the Bar competition, Beer 52's search for the UK's best new small brewers in partnership with London's Craft Beer Festival. Unity's 7% export stout, Boxcar's Belgian IPA, and West by 3's Mothership Wit Passion Fruit. If you want a free case of craft beer, and why would you not, go to beer52.com. They have a perfect 5-star rating on Trustpilot. Everybody loves them, and you can cancel anytime. So just get the free case. Okay, please go do that. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the game. And Tim, as Unai Emery continues to shake up the bag of players and reach in and see what he pulls out. Tonight he pulled out a back three. What did you think of that?
Yeah, I was really surprised, actually, because I've kind of been calling for this. But, well, I say calling for it. It's been like a quiet preference that I've had, maybe not so quiet, for a little while. But with the first team, with guys like Ramsey and Ozil and guys. But with this one, I found it really interesting. I'd really like to know the reason why he did it. Whether it was because there was a part of me that just thought, does he just really, really not see Kolasinac as a left back? Which I think Wenger didn't either. After a while, he saw him purely as a left wing back. But then I thought, well, no, Monreal's playing, and actually he's got the players to play a back four here. And he's got the players with him to play a 4-2-3-1, so there must be a reason behind this. I can only imagine it was just to do with the idea of making us defensively a little bit more solid, particularly because we've had a really hard time kind of helping our fullbacks out recently, and so I think maybe that was the reason. Maybe he just thought it was a good game for experimentation as well. Most of us, I think, wanted to see a bit of a second string lineup. So why not try another formation? But then there's another part of me that thinks, well, what's the point in testing new formations with the second string? So I'd be really interested, because I still haven't quite got my head round. And that's not to say there isn't a good reason. It's just I can't think of the obvious reason why he did this. But I think it had maybe mixed success in the first half. The one thing I really did like was kind of Iwobi just a little bit infield in that half space, and Kolasinac just keeping the width of the pitch. And Qarabag really struggled to deal with that. The other thing I quite liked was actually having someone on the right-hand side. Actually having two players on the right-hand side. And another one of the things I liked, which, again, fairly Iwobi-centric, I think Smith-Rowe held the width that right-hand side quite well. I don't think Lichtsteiner did. I think he was a bit rubbish, to be honest.
Agreed.
Not been
Agreed.
hugely impressed with him so far. But what Smith-Rowe did really well was, Mkhitaryan-esque, just kind of holding that right-hand side. And one of the things that Iwobi gives you, and the reason I think Wenger stuck with Iwobi last year, even when he wasn't playing well, is because when he comes off that left-hand side, he doesn't want to just stay in that 10 yards of space. Like, we were still, particularly in the first half, had a heavy left-sided bias. But what Iwobi does is he likes to come horizontally across the pitch and go towards the right-hand side. He carries the ball basically into other spaces. And so I think Iwobi he made, well, him and Kolasinac made a really good partnership together. But at the same time, having Iwobi there, and El Neni does this a little bit as well. He looks up and he looks across and he spreads the game a little bit. So I think those things worked well. Defensively, it didn't seem to make us any more secure. I think Holding had a bit of a tough time in the first half doing that. Monreal's got that hybrid left back centre half role absolutely locked.
Yeah, Holding doesn't look comfortable with it at all to me. He was very conservative with his passing too.
Yeah, and he kept and because I don't think Lichtsteiner was very good, he was going out there quite a lot. And yeah, I agree with you. I don't think he looked that comfortable. He looked far more comfortable in the second half. So it was a really interesting experiment actually, and I think it was the most interesting thing about the game.
Yeah, it was very interesting and very unexpected. But, I mean, Clive, you've been begging for a back three, obviously not with this collection of players. So I'm curious to get your sense of, were you excited to see it? Were you disappointed to see it with this group and how you thought it played out?
I just think it's nice that he's prepared to flip systems just like that. And I think that shows us a level of bravery. And I think everybody's waiting to see the Emery system. Well, actually, I've got a completely different view on this. I think it's much more about him establishing a platform at Arsenal. And the platform is based on work ethic, moving the ball quickly, being more direct, passing the ball forward earlier, crossing earlier, moving very quickly. I think that just made us a little bit more sort of urgent in our play. I think that's the foundation stone. And when you start to develop that foundation stone, then you can start to flip with systems. So this is actually quite exciting that he felt confident to do this away in front of 50,000, 60,000 people in Qarabag land, right? So I think that's really, really good. I think the key thing for me is what he's trying to do, and he said it himself, is he's trying to develop a winning mentality. And this is why all of these star players are travelling, right? Because he wants his one for all for one type mentality. When we're all in it, doesn't matter where it is, all the ones that are left behind, there's a clear reason why they're left behind. There's no one messing about, no one choosing to sit on the settee to watch the EastEnders. This is all about Arsenal Football Club, and we're all in it, and we're going to bring on our superstars later on. And I was quite pleased to see him being brave enough to make this formation change. Did it work? Mate, I don't think it did. I think it didn't because the wing-backs, I think they just got a bit tired. Both of them have not been playing. And so when they got tired, they just tucked in a bit too much and turned it into a back five, which means we couldn't get out so easily. And our midfield looked like they were getting robbed. They were getting robbed because they had no exits. And they ended up getting second efforts and creating a bit of pressure. Our goalkeeper saved us while we were sloppy. And I think the goalkeeper, I'm sure you're going to come on to him.
Oh,
he
yeah.
He deserves a massive round of applause, right? So I was pleased, mate, in the end. But is it good? Yes, because I think he's brave enough to do it. That means foundation stones are being laid.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with it. I mean, the funny thing is, I'm usually the first to go absolutely mental at basically anything. I mean, it's kind of hard to predict what'll set me off, and there are a lot of hills I'm willing to die on. In fact, if you went to a place with a lot of hills, you'd probably find parts of my body all over the tops of those hills. And yet, I didn't really give a shit about this. It's Qarabag away in the Europa League where we're going to qualify out of this group, no problem. So I was just happy that he wasn't risking too many critical players. I mean, I would have preferred that we took that cat we found on the pitch before the match and played him at center back instead of Socrates. But other than that, I wasn't too concerned. The cool part about this game, obviously, is the performances of Iwobi and Emil Smith-Rowe, because you get, a first-time goal, debutant goal for Smith-Rowe. You get one for Guendouzi, and you get one for Socrates, right? All of them. So, so they all get their first goal for the club, which was great. But, I mean, just for a moment, let's set aside all the whining. We can always come back to that. But, Tim, how nice is it to see two Hale End products coming out and performing like this, goals for Emma Smith-Rowe and assist for Alex Iwobi, and watching them really be sort of the bright spots of the game?
Yeah, hugely encouraging, and particularly that second goal where Iwobi is the one that sets up Smith-Rowe. And actually, Iwobi in that moment, maybe I'm overplaying this, but he really looked like the senior player, and obviously he is the senior player there. But it's interesting in those moments where players show you something, I think, in little moments where he's running with the ball and he's almost telling Smith-Rowe, go on, run into that space. I'll everything about his body shape is, you run there and I'll get you the ball. Don't you worry about it. And almost that little bit of guidance. And, look, I'm not saying that Alex Iwobi is Tony Adams and we should make him captain and he's a leader and everything.
He did have the armband, didn't he? At the end of the game, didn't he finish with the armband, or before he was taken off in the second half? Am I wrong about that?
Welbeck had it.
Welbeck had it. Damn it. I'm always wrong about everything. All right, fine. Just add it to the list.
But I know you mean, Tim. It looked like a graduation moment there, didn't it?
It did, yeah. It was like an almost literal passing of the baton. And I know that is overselling it a little bit. But, I'm a strong believer that players show you things in little moments sometimes. And that's what they show you is it's kind of potential, it's ability. It's that there's something, I can isolate that and I want to get that out of you more often. That kind of confidence where you think, I'm all right. I've had X amount of games for the first team. Come with me, son, kind of thing. And it's a huge credit to everyone who does lots and lots of work at Hale End. The amount of money that has been poured into facilities, not just at Hale End, at Colney. I've seen it for myself at Colney, and they do it all, and they know. And from all of Per Mertesaker's interviews, it's very interesting with Mertesaker. All of his interviews seem to be are more focused on the people who aren't going to make it, because the vast majority of them won't even see a first team game, won't even get near it, and that kind of that whole human side of it and setting them up for life. And now you do coaching badges once you hit the under 18s.
That's great.
So that,
that's great.
Yeah, so that if you don't make it, you've immediately got a career option. And they do all of that knowing that only one or two players will ever come through, and that doesn't even. I've been saying this about a lot of our young players for a while, like the likes of Iwobi, Maitland-Niles, Nelson. They don't have to be the next Messi. If they can be, like, if Maitland-Niles can be the next Gilles Grimandi, that's good. That's still good. That still saves us, like, I don't know, 10, 15 million pounds, and it's still good development. And Smith-Rowe might never be like the next Fabregas or whatever. He's possibly got the ability to be a real fixture for us. But if they can just be, if we can just have some squad players even from the youth team. I've said it again and again. Ferguson did this brilliantly. It wasn't just the golden generation. He kept churning these players out, and I'm sure everyone who's involved in the setup at Hale End will be clinking a glass tonight.
Yeah, I think they have every right to. And the one thing I will say about Smith-Rowe is he really likes to drive the ball into the center of the pitch. And if anything tells you that he's a fit for Arsenal, I think to make it at Arsenal, you have to show that you want to play in the center of the pitch and refuse to occupy other spaces. So he's already got that in his game. He could have had two, actually. And was it Iwobi that played the beautiful cross to him that he just slid to the outside of the post? Or did that come from Kolasinac?
No, I think it was Kolasinac.
It was a really nice Kolasinac ball. But so, I mean, a good day for Smith-Rowe. And maybe the back three, you guys. I mean, one thing I think is because we didn't have a lot of really experienced goal-scoring attackers on the pitch to start the game, maybe the back three was also designed to let Iwobi and Smith-Rowe stay closer to goal and stay further up the pitch. One thing that we heard Iwobi say is that Emery wants him to concentrate on end product and stay in the final third and be more active in the final third. And we saw that tonight. And he was able to do that because he didn't have to make as many recovery runs, didn't have to cover as much of the pitch. And I think that really suits him. It's getting harder and harder to get the ball off him. He's really developed a strength on the ball. But with Iwobi, it's always going to come down to judging him by end product, because Iwobi has flattered to deceive previously. where the final third has kind of been a mess for him. But tonight he gets an assist. I thought he was very good in the final third. He's my man of the match. I know he's a player you have a lot of time for, Clive. So for you, your thoughts on his performance and how close he must be to claiming a spot in the first team?
Yeah, he's on his way, isn't he? He looks like he's dropped a size in shorts. That's the first thing you can see. He just looks really chiseled, and he's moving well. He's driving well. You judge him on final ball. I judge him on ball retention, actually. I think if he can really retain the ball in tight spaces, which he's starting to do, use his strength and start to move, that's the sort of skill that we're sort of lacking a little bit. That sort of press-resistant type player that can play outside and inside. I think his future is going to be inside, just as he gets older and stronger. I just think he'll naturally fall inside, and when he does, he's going to be a very, very good player. I think, going on Tim's point about these young players being squad players, I've said for a while now that this group that we have, the difference between them and the older groups that we used to have is that physically they look the part. I mean, Smith-Rowe is 18 and he looks like a 6-footer already. Guendouzi, I know we bought him in, he's 19. He looks strong. He looks energetic. Iwobi the same. Maitland-Niles is also super fast and great, very athletic. And that gives you a base by which you can put them into a game and they're not going to let you down. And Smith-Rowe and Iwobi are very technical. And we're starting to see, what's really unfortunate, we haven't seen Maitland-Niles grab these opportunities because he always seems to be injured at the wrong moment. But we've all seen him in patches, and we all think that he's gonna reach similar heights. So with this group, we're seeing a physical base which is strong, and a technical base which is developing. And that calmness that Iwobi showed is something that basically wasn't always there. And I think he's starting to relax a little bit more. The pressure's coming off. The belief that the new coaches are giving him is obvious. He's looking more relaxed. He's hungry for the ball. And he feels, I'm part of this now. I'm a big part of this. I've got belief. I've got a new contract. The club believes in me. I've got a pay rise. Other people are being moved on. And I'm here. And this is that's all a player needs, right? So he's starting to feel it and show it now. And people mustn't stop thinking about the final ball, because people who drive and dribble into wide areas and take risks, their final ball are always going to be suspect. I think what we're seeing him with composure and the experience he's now showing at first team level, that's the key measure for me. And I think he's doing fantastic. Yeah.
Eden Hazard might have a word with you about that final ball being not so good from dribbly wide players, but I take your point. Look, I think it's going to be a ton of fun when Aubameyang starts on the left and Ozil starts on the right on Sunday against Fulham. So that'll be a blast. So, Tim, let's talk about some of the other players that we don't get quite a lot of looks at. And I think there was an expectation that maybe Kolasinac might take Monreal's spot this season and get his real chance to be the left back for the club. Injury obviously gave him a false start on the season, but we do get to see him play tonight. And I think what we're seeing is what we're familiar with him. He's such a contradiction. He looks like a tank, like a guy who should be a destroyer center back. He plays like a ballerina. He's got, light on his feet. He's doing roulettes and things like that. But he's not much for the defensive side of the game. I mean, how worried are you that if he is going to be a fullback at the club, he doesn't look up to it defensively?
Yeah, he doesn't look like a fullback to me. I think we might have said this before last season. When he's got the ball, he's super aggressive. Like that first couple of minutes, he goes down the left hand side, and the Qarabag player, it was like Bruce Banner style, The more he was trying to pull Kolasinac's shirt, I swear his biceps were growing like all the time. It was like a bit, Hulk smash. When he's got the ball, he's super aggressive, or when he's going for it. But when the other player has the ball, I think there's something about his body shape that just doesn't quite, not necessarily physically his body shape, but he doesn't quite have that half turn kind of stance down like Monreal does. Like Monreal really, really, he's really good at pushing off his back foot and twisting his hips and twisting his shoulders, which you have to do a lot of as a fullback. And Kolasinac just doesn't quite have that. He doesn't quite have that pivot in his hips and his shoulders. He can't get turned off the ball. And there was definitely a chance for Qarabag in the second half where he just kind of he looked up and he saw the runner, and then he looked at the ball, and then all of a sudden the runner slightly changed direction and he just couldn't get turned. And I don't think he is a fullback. I think he can definitely play wing back. Maybe winger, although I prefer him running onto the ball. Aggressiveness. I think I read when we signed him at Schalke in his last season, he played a lot in a midfield three, and I could see him in that role. I see him certainly as more of a midfielder than a defender. I don't think he's got brilliant defensive instincts, although when we first signed him, if you remember, his first couple of games were at the centre of a back three. And the centre of a back three is quite a good place to put a defender that isn't great at defending, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, you can hide him. You got someone on either side.
Exactly. It's where Chelsea put David Luiz. It's where, I think if we're going to play Mustafi, that's where we should put him. So they can be aggressive, they can even be a bit reckless, they can go and attack the ball, and if they don't get it, there's two centre-backs behind them. So I can see it's more about duels when you're in the middle of that back three, whereas the two to the side of you, they're the ones who are doing all the twisty-turny stuff with their body and shepherding and showing you inside, whereas the middle centre-back's like an attack dog. So I definitely see why Kolasinac, can play that middle pin in the back three, but I don't think he's a fullback, and I don't really think he's a defender. He's another one who, he's a wing back really, but other than that, he reminds me a little bit in a weird way of Thomas Vermaelen, in that I think Thomas Vermaelen is a good footballer, but I can't think of a single position I'd play him in. I look at him and I think objectively, you're a good football player. You've got a lot of good attributes, but I don't think I trust you at centre-back. I don't think you're quite good enough to be a midfielder. I don't know what I'd do with you, kind of thing.
And a couple good full-back performances for us, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. But to be fair, maybe we're being kind of, well, maybe I'm being overcritical, because in the first half as a left wing back I thought he was devastating. I don't think Qarabag, that partnership between him and Iwobi, Qarabag couldn't handle it, and that to me so far from what I've seen, I don't see anything other than a left wing back in a 3-5-2.
He was in the Bundesliga team of the season as a wingback, and I think as a wingback he's perfectly serviceable. You're going to get a little bit of a liability defensively, but it's made up for by being a very effective attacking player, and he has the cover in a back three. I don't see how he can be a fullback in a back two, and that is problematic because you got Maitland-Niles who's injured, you've got Nacho Monreal who's 30, and it just creates a depth issue. And it's funny because we bring in Lichtsteiner, we have Kolasinac and Maitland-Niles, and we're thinking, okay, maybe we have some depth at fullback, and it turns out that Kola looks more like a wing back, Maitland-Niles is injured, and Lichtsteiner looks like what you'd expect a mid-30s guy who just left Juventus to look like, someone who's just collecting a last paycheck. So, and maybe that's a little harsh on him, but to be fair, other than yelling and screaming and looking generally mean and nasty, I don't know that he's been very effective. So fullback continues to maybe be an area where we are stretched a little thinner than we might have thought. So let's just shift gears a little bit, Clive, and talk about the center backs, because Socrates, when he comes on, he just continues to impress. Unfortunately, I don't think Holding did, and as we continue to look for where the right partnership might be and any alternative to Mustafi, whose best position might be the boot of a car, I think tonight wouldn't necessarily have, once again, cemented Holding's place in the first team. Do you feel that he maybe came up short on what he needed to do one more time?
I don't think so. If you think,
okay, well that's wrong. So should we get Tim's opinion? No, just
well, if you think about it, he's been playing left centre half most of the time, right? And so he's been moved to right centre back. So it's a completely different area of the pitch for him. And then he goes back to left centre half, and I think he settles down, right? So I think it's a. We had a back five, and it was an experiment, and almost all the players were doing it for the first time, apart from Monreal. Maybe Kolasinac for Arsenal sort of thing. And I'm thinking, hold on a minute. This is like interesting. Let's see how they go. So Holding's on his right foot. He's put a lot of time on his left foot, and he just felt a little bit awkward in those situations. But Arsenal are on the left side, Kolasinac, what he does is that he rests in defence, but he's not a defender. So when he's tired, he tucks in narrow and rests, doesn't get his shoulders around the right way. He just fills the hole and then thinks, crikey, the ball's coming, I'm not ready for it. And he drops deep and completely drops the line. And our centre-half, they have to react to this. They push up, they're in sync, and he's left behind. And I think it was just the combinations and partnerships that made maybe Holding and Monreal look a little bit lumpy on occasions, but I didn't think he did too bad. I don't see him. I see him as a very good Premiership centre back. If I'm brutally honest with you, I think we need a true left-sided centre back. I've been watching like Man City and watching Barcelona last night, and they've got two left footers in there, and I think it'll do wonders for our distribution. I think it'll do wonders for our shapes and our patterns if you had a natural left footer and left side of the centre.
I don't know if you've seen him, but there's a centre back I watched play pretty well actually in the Champions League this week. The name Gabriel Paulista, I think is his name. I don't know if you spotted him, but he looked pretty impressive.
If you look at I quite like him. I'm on record. I quite like him, but he's not.
You don't have to take that seriously, by the way. I'm just shit stirring. Obviously,
he's not a lefty. But I watched him that Lenglet play for Barcelona last night, and somebody that we were linked with. I think we're never too sure. I think, wow, if we had him, watched Laporte play, very good player. I just think that's the future. We need to do this properly, and so I think Holding will always be a squad rotation centre half. But for me, he's moved way ahead of what people talk about Callum Chambers a little while ago. Well, that's gone very quiet. Right, he's barely making a team at Fulham. He's in and out, and I've got Fulham friends, and they're not overly impressed with him.
Yeah, so I got that one totally wrong. Hold my hand up there.
I think Holding has stepped past Chambers. And if they're competing for one contract, I think Holding's gonna be fine at Arsenal for a while.
Yeah. I would still probably give him a shot to pair with Socrates at the weekend if we're playing a back four, and just give Mustafi the day off, and then maybe the day off in midweek, and then maybe the day off after that, and then maybe just forget where we left him in the car park, and then maybe just never have him back. But I'm still figuring out how I feel about that guy. Hey, one thing that's created a little bit of debate online is everything, but apart from everything, Tim, is Guendouzi's performance. So I am the first to think someone played poorly, and yet I actually thought this was a really good performance. I think my feeling with Guendouzi is I still don't totally trust him in the defensive third, and he's still not as precise as he could be in the attacking third, which we talked about with Iwobi. You talked about a lot. That takes the longest to develop, right, as a final ball. But in the middle third of the pitch, I love what he does. I love the way he shapes his body. I love the way he receives and turns and distributes. He makes some good progressive passes. And this is where statistics, I realize there's lies, damn lies, in statistics, and, sometimes they don't have a bearing. But I got a lot of people saying to me on Twitter, go fuck yourself. But in addition to the usual, I had a lot of people saying, to me, oh, he was sloppy on the ball. He gave the ball away too much. He was dispossessed too often. But then I looked at the statistics, and I'm just bringing them up again because I had the mid-match, but I want to make sure I now have the full match statistics. 91% completed. All right, 66 to 73. He misplaced 7 passes the whole game. He was dispossessed one time, had 2 ball recoveries. He was 8 of 11 in attacking third passes, so pretty good attacking third. 1 of 1 inside the penalty area, scored a goal. 91% passing, dispossessed once, scored a goal. What else does he need to do? I mean, what did you think of his performance? Is there something he was doing poorly that I maybe missed?
No, I don't think so. I thought he was really good as well. I agree with you. I think in that kind of middle third of the pitch, he's really, really good. I think maybe in the defensive phase, he can still be a little bit rash, which, obviously largely due to his age, I think.
Do you think it's just from Xhaka's tutelage, maybe? No?
Maybe. But he can still be, off the ball. I mean, still a little bit so basically I think he's really, really good on the ball, and you see doing the passing out from the back stuff, he doesn't care at all. He doesn't care if he's got someone up his backside when he's getting the ball off the goalkeeper. He really doesn't mind. He's really nice and relaxed. He's really good at playing those kind of just pinging the ball between like two players who are closing down as well. I think he's really got a really good out ball when we're in our own half. I think maybe, you know, when he gets the whites of a goalkeeper's eyes, or he gets in the last third of the pitch, maybe he gets a little bit overexcited, and maybe the same when he's defending off the ball at times. But I think all of that's to be quite expected. I do also think, I know it sounds like quite a silly point to make. So first of all, the reason I think that some people might have thought that is because of the type of player he is. When it doesn't go right, it's quite noticeable, because he plays the brave pass quite often. Also, his hair. Think about the reputation of guys like Marouane Fellaini and David Luiz, who continue to get into teams, you know, that are pretty good and pretty successful, albeit Manchester United aren't very good at the moment. But yeah, indeed. So, but I really, really quite honestly think that sometimes, you know, on a very subconscious level, that, you know, those sorts of players with big noticeable hair can draw attention to themselves, and often in a kind of negative way almost, because people don't quite take you seriously. But yeah, I really like him. I think he's really nice and calm at the right moments. He's really nice and brave. He plays those kind of really progressive passes upfield, and he looks like, you can hear in all his interviews, you know, you can tell when someone's just giving you the chat in an interview where they say, oh, it's an honour to play for Arsenal, blah, 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 and they fall asleep while they're talking. But you can tell he really means it. And, you know, that his reaction when he scored was really very much, you know, he's got that nice, like, that nice childlike kind of, wow, I can't, and probably this is a symptom of coming straight from Ligue 2, but, you know, that, wow, I can't believe I'm here, I'm playing for Arsenal. And, you know, he said this himself many times, when you grow up in France and you're of a certain age, you know, Arsenal has an extra resonance. It's not just another European club, it's basically a French club, isn't it, when you look back kind of 15 years. So But I mean, none of that really has any bearing on his ability as a player. I just think he doesn't, in that middle, like for his actual main duties in the middle of the field, he doesn't look 20 years old. He looks more than his age. Maybe off the ball, he still looks a bit 20 years old sometimes. Maybe in the last 20 yards, he can look 20 years old sometimes. But in that middle third, which is where we want him, I think he looks really, really good. I think he looks like a real find, and he looks to me like he's got that kind of mentality to play for a club like Arsenal.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I will say is whenever I see him sort of standing there with his hands on his hips, I always expect to see like a cigarette in his mouth and he's waiting for a photo shoot to get started or something. He's got sort of like some kind of like a magazine model from the 1940s kind of look about him. He's a very unique looking player, and sometimes that, you're right, creates a bias among people. But I mean, you compare with El Neni. El Neni completed 98% of his passes, 48 of 49. But he's sort of the epitome of just safe and careful. 27% were forward. So he played just 13 forward passes. He played just 5 in the attacking third. By comparison, Guendouzi was 42% forward of his passes, and actually played a lot more passes as well. I believe he played 66 successful passes. So, you know, you're going to give it away a little bit more when you're more progressive, but I don't think you can afford to have two central midfielders who are playing just 27% of their passes forward, especially in a back three, and be penetrative. Yeah, go ahead.
And I was just going to say, you know, he played alongside El Neni tonight, and you know, I like El Neni. I think he's a perfectly serviceable squad player, but I think you saw a difference there, didn't you?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, well, you think about 27, and maybe did I say Emery when I meant El Neni? But I mean, El Neni played 27% of his passes forward, and compared to 42% from Guendouzi. So yeah, I do think you see the difference. And again, you know, El Neni is a tough player. He's sort of tofu in some ways. There's nothing particularly terrible about what he does on the pitch. There's just nothing particularly incredible that stands out to you because he's very safe. You know, and against a team like this where you just don't want to give them easy chances to hurt you, maybe that's better than someone like Xhaka, you know, selling a pass to a central defender short and leading to a transitional opportunity for the opposition. But yeah, I'd much rather have Guendouzi's characteristics on the pitch. So Clive, I thought Guendouzi was impressive. Yeah, go ahead.
A counter view.
I'm curious because there are a lot of people in my mentions telling me that he was not great.
I think he was fine, but seriously, now if I was his manager, I'd be really working on him. He's a player that's got a huge personality, and the fact he's been here 2 minutes and he's strutting around our midfield, jogging and getting the ball and stroking it around, receiving it under pressure, that doesn't tell you he's a shy little flower, right? He's not. He wants it. He has got the personality to play for Arsenal. So I think this is the time to get him to be more disciplined positioning. I think he floats too much. I think he floats into wide areas too much, and he doesn't recover centrally quickly enough, which means we are letting people pour through our middle. So on the ball, he looks wonderful. But off the ball, I don't think he's urgent enough to recover back into his position. And I think that's why he's come out of the team. What he does on the ball is really good. He's quite progressive. He wants to play the ball forward. He's not scared of a diagonal. He's not scared of a sort of reverse pass through the lines. He points where he wants it. He's got all of those things that on a 2-minute YouTube clip would look absolutely tremendous. But when that clip finishes and he has to run back into his hole, I'm not seeing it, mate. I'm not seeing it. And so I would get hold of him and I'd say, right, you're doing fantastic, but there's two sides of this game. And I'd get him now at 19-20 to make sure he's not another one of these players that we develop that can only play one way. Make sure he's a two-way player. He's got it. He can go to ground. He can work hard. He can buy fouls. He can shield the ball. Maybe that wasn't required massively tonight, but I would get hold of him and make sure he does those fundamental things, because when he does that, he won't be one of those players that we're not sure what he is. He'll be one of those players that can play in the midfield too, because he can go both ways and he's brave and he can receive it. I think it's very important we don't develop players. We've got so many of these players now at Arsenal. Some of them have gone. So one of them is about to go, where we debate what they are because they don't do both sides of the job. If we can make sure he does, then we won't lose him into that floaty 8.5, 10 type position. And then they end up not being or end up being judged as not being developed properly at Arsenal. So he's one I would get hold of right now before the problem becomes big, and make him an absolutely strong centre midfielder that can go both ways, and because his potential is huge.
You've really struck a chord with me there too, Clive, because I know a thing or two about looking really good for 2 minutes. So, I mean, that is absolutely something I can identify with. I think, you're right. And the truth is, when we watched him in preseason, I was so impressed with him on the ball, but we all thought this is a guy who's going to get bypassed. We saw it in the Chelsea preseason game. I think it was him and Elneny, actually, who got bypassed time and time again in the center of midfield. And you're right, until he develops that awareness to track back and stay positionally oriented, he probably is going to stay out of the first team. The irony, of course, is the player who gets his position is Granit Xhaka, who sort of struggles with the same thing. So, yeah, I mean, it's 6 of one, half dozen the other. But, Clive, I'll stay with you just for a minute because we made the change at halftime. Torreira came on. Now, I have not seen comments post-match yet because we started recording this right away. Do any of us know if any information has been passed along about a Nacho Monreal injury? I assumed it was just tactical. He wanted to look at another setup. Do we know anything different?
I haven't seen it yet. Have you seen it, Tim? I'm not seeing it.
Okay.
And I hope it's not injury because, man, we
need him. The good news is I'm not super. All right, blame me when this goes wrong, but I'm not super worried about Sunday's game. But, Clive, just real quick, your thoughts on Torreira and the influence he had. I thought this was a performance where he looked like he's still kind of figuring it out for us.
No, mate, when he comes on, he just stands in the middle of that pitch and says, right, this is it. I'm here. You lot move. You move there to the left. You move to the right. This is my hole. No doubts what he is. I don't worry about him too much. He's playing every game now. He's on the pitch. And I think it's obvious the manager trusts him, which is great. You know, he brought him on in games to solidify games or change games. Now he's starting games. And he came on in this game when we were rocking a little bit before half-time. I mean, they didn't have the quality, but we were rocking, and then we rocked a little bit afterwards. And then by the end of the game, we had it under control. So I think he's a definite controlling player that does some dirty work. It doesn't look spectacular, but he fills holes properly, knows when to engage, gets bypassed now and again, gets good strong headers in, moves the ball quickly. I tell you what, mate, he is one of those players you can literally almost build the team around because you know what he's going to do. His game is so clear. I almost don't worry about the execution because the intent is always the same. He has the same attitude, the same desire. The execution will be better on some days than others. I can take Thursday night after a 6-hour flight away at Qarabag. If he's not perfect, I can deal with that. But we need him at 12:30 on Sunday morning, whenever it is, because I think that is a huge game, and I think we're going to need all of our players fresh and moving well. I think this is a potential slippery slope up for them.
Oh, interesting. See, I would not have said that, but then again, what do I know about football, for God's sakes? I just don't think defensively they have any chance of keeping us out. I think they can score on us because they are a living, breathing 11 human beings, but I think we can outscore them. Tim, well, first of all, I do want to get your thoughts on Torreira's performance as well. I mean, I think part of the problem is if you're watching this on a stream on a mobile device, he's just too small to see, so it's difficult to tell if he's there at all. Is there something more to it than that, or is that the kind of in-depth analysis we need on this podcast?
I'd say the thing I found about Torreira was that I didn't notice him, and I think that's quite a good sign for someone playing in that position, and that's what everyone used to say about Gilberto Silva, for example. People used to say that sat around me, he's like the referee. If you don't notice him, he's had a stormer.
Mike Dean is furious with that take.
Well, yeah, indeed. Well, he has different types of storm. He has a stormer as a performer. He's a performer.
God bless him.
But yeah, that's like the best thing I can say about Torreira is that I can't remember anything that he did, and that probably means that he didn't do anything wrong, and in that position that's absolutely great, and I think I think basically I think Clive's absolutely right. We were rocking a bit at the end of the first half, and usually a back three is supposed to make you a bit more secure. And then, you go to a back four in an attempt to make yourself more secure, and you think, how's this going to go? But we were kind of fine, maybe bar the first kind of 5 minutes or so. And, look, the second goal has a lot to do with that. The second goal kills them. They kind of lose interest in the game at that point. But yeah, he's just one of those. He looks to me like one of those players that doesn't do anything badly, but there's nothing you'd say, oh yeah, he's really good at that. And that's what you need in that position.
So what he did, what I felt happened in the second half, guys, was obviously I thought when we went to a back four, I was a little bit edgy actually. I thought, crikey. Within the first seconds, you look at Kolasinac and Lichtsteiner, you're thinking, well, they're standing in the same position as they were in the first half. They're right on the touchline. I'm thinking, this is not going to end well. But what we did was just move the emphasis further forward. So then Torreira then steps in front. Then you got Neni and Guendouzi in front of them, and then you got Smith-Rowe and Iwobi in front of them, and everything moves forward, which means we're now engaging them higher up, and we're not playing in the wrong areas. Our back five was so deep, so every time we tried to exit, we were losing it in the middle third. They're getting shots off and reverse shots, and Leno's making great saves by moving almost our defence in front of the back four, and Torreira being that first line. They've got to travel through our midfield, and we can press them up there, and then suddenly we're getting transitions and they're running backward, and towards the end of the game they're running backward for 2-goal, 3-goal deficit, and suddenly they didn't look so quick, didn't look so enthusiastic, and they were getting in, and we left 2 goals on that pitch. That should have been 5-0, right?
Yeah.
Well, Mesut Ozil, do you guys hate anything as much as Mesut Ozil hates shooting?
Yeah, I was thinking that. I was just going to add to Clive's point and say it's almost like a V shape. There you've got with like Torreira at the base, and then you've got 2 maybe slightly wide of him but fairly central, and then the 2 guys slightly wide of them but not like out on the touchline. It's like a proper in ice hockey, right? that's usually the idea, right? That you play in a bit of the flying V. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's what he did. It's what he did at PSG. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, that Özil pass. I mean, this is the thing with Özil. Sometimes I feel like this happened under Wenger a fair bit, where the emphasis was so much on like, look for the pass, that sometimes the pass isn't the best option. I'm all for setting up a better placed teammate, and on another night, Smith-Rowe misses that chance that he had, and Danny Welbeck is on the back post going, excuse me, I'm unmarked back here. But the thing you should do in that scenario is take the best option available to you. And if the best option's a pass, but it isn't always. And I mean, that was kind of peak Özil. It was because it was on his right foot. But, having like, he's got one player in front of him and a clear shot on goal, but he decides to try and tee up someone who's got three players in front of him. It was
he refuses to do anything ugly. Right?
It's one thing to pass the ball across the 6-yard box, but when you are at the edge of the 6-yard box and the pass you pick out is the top of the 18, you've maybe overthought it. I mean, it wasn't like he passed it directly across the box. He went back 10 yards, so that was a little bizarre. But, well, Tim, let's stay on the substitutions. I mean, this game was won. Their legs were gone. This was not much of a competition from a class standpoint. I always felt if we needed another goal, we could have gone up a gear and gotten it. How surprised were you that Lacazette and Ozil came on and played? And were you upset that they did?
I wasn't surprised at all, actually, because he took them. And you look at that bench, there was no one on that bench that isn't a first team player. So I didn't think he'd keep the same 11, but I think having taken them, I think whatever the score would have been, he'd have put them on and given them 15, 20 minutes just to, keep them tuned, keep them sharp a little bit. And to be quite frank, I have no idea what the kind of, the performance team, as it were. There might be really good sports science behind this that says, give them 15 minutes against some tiring legs. They don't have to overexert themselves. They don't have to go sprinting off. They're not chasing anything. Give them like a 15-minute almost training session.
Well, yeah, I mean, if there wasn't a game, they would have had a training session today, right? So it isn't much different.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's all about...
Sorry, just finish up, Tim. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just going to say, my slight concern with the squad we brought out wasn't so much the playing of the game, it was more the travel. And I understand when people are like, oh yeah, but they travel in such style, and that's fine. But I mean, two things. First of all, Fulham aren't doing that either way. No matter how comfortably you're travelling, our opponents on Sunday aren't doing that. Second of all, they might travel very, very comfortably. They're still getting home at sunrise tomorrow, which, I'm sure they'll have a nice nap on the plane and all of that. But that's still slightly disruptive. But I'm not massively exercised about that. I think once you take them, I don't think playing them is much of an issue.
No, I agree with that. All right, and by the way, the one thing I will say, it's not just travel. Pro athletes, you hear this from them all the time. So much of their performance is also down to routine. And so if you can keep a week, sleeping in your own bed, staying in your own home, going through your own routine, being on the same sleep schedule, eating at the same times, those things, as weird as it sounds, I mean, pro athletes will tell you that matters to them. And so even just going on a trip like that disrupts those routines a little bit. Having said that, I think at any big club you are used to a midweek game and travel and all of that. So, Clive, I mean, your thoughts on those guys getting on the pitch and whether it was worth it, not worth it, a risk worth taking?
I think what he's trying to do is get the winning mentality back. He wants wins, and he wants to keep as many wins going as possible. And I'm not saying we were going to lose out there, but I think the commentator said that Qarabag drew with Atletico Madrid twice last season. So this is a manager that does his research. If we didn't score early, maybe they would have got the crowd up, and you never know what could have happened. He wants to win, and he wants to get that change our mentality, and I am hugely behind that. There's been too many times when we've chosen when to turn up over the last few years. Hence, we've been a cup team over the last 2 years. If we want to change this culture and change our mentality, it starts by winning every game. And if you look at, now Chelsea's got a slightly, more expensive squad and a smaller squad. And when they play these games, their players play. You know, look at other teams. It's only a lot of their players play. A lot of their big players play. We've let our big players have weeks off. I don't think it benefited the squad last year. We sort of were behind it. I wanted it. This 2-squad thing, I liked it. It seemed to make sense. But did it make sense? I don't think it bred the right sort of mentality. I don't think it bred the right competitive nature you need in the dressing room. I don't think it made people work for their paycheck. I think it made people think, well, I don't have to play today. I want to be one of the people that don't have to travel, that don't have to play, that didn't have to play 3 times a week. I think it's great what he's doing. Everyone's the same. Let's change the mentality. Let's get Arsenal back to being a winning football club, and then start from there. And let's build our new Arsenal from that baseline.
Well, part of the new Arsenal, Clive, is Leno as our goalkeeper. I mean, obviously, Cech out with an injury, and now is Leno's time to make that position his own. I will admit, for no reason I can really put my finger on, the guy makes me nervous as hell. I don't know why. I mean, there's no particular reason. Maybe it's just the reputation that he has a mistake in, and maybe it's that mistake he made at the weekend where he almost sort of whiffed on it and backheeled it into his own net. But I mean, this performance, he did make some critical saves. He certainly looks like he's very quick to get down to balls and very quick to get off his line and play sweeper keeper. I mean, there are things to like here. Overall, how did this performance strike you?
Yeah, a couple of those saves I thought were excellent. The one that went through, I think it was Monreal's legs and by the near post, that's a goal, right? And if that goes in, no one's going to complain. He's fired that low through the guy's legs on the reverse, and he's collapsed his legs really quickly and got to the ground. And I mean, that's a great save. And I think he made another one in the early part of the second half, a block low down as well. I just like his speed. I like his speed on the ground. I like his speed of hands. Yeah, he's not 6'5", so there will be occasions where I can see the ball going to the top corner if it's well struck. But he is the modern goalkeeper. Chelsea has got one, very light. Barcelona have got one, very light on their feet, look like footballers, look like they can play, they move. They're just mobile athletes that are quick off their line, very aggressive and very front-footed. And that's the way the game's going. The goalkeeper now is just another outfield player. And he is the base of your team. And, I've seen many a five-a-side tournament, and when that's how a goalkeeper's used, right? And they come out rush, and they end up being your last centre-back, and you can always go back to him, right? So yeah, I like him. I like him, and he's getting a chance now. And I think as fans, we've got to realise that there's a huge investment coming from clubs, and the important thing when you put these players into teams is that they arrive at the right time, they don't derail. And we all want to see Torreira play, but he's arrived at the right time, and now he seems to be in the team. And Liverpool have got one in Fabinho. He cost £40 million, and he's not started yet. There are other signings that have happened across the league that are just waiting to settle in. And I think we just got to change our thought process now about how long it takes to adapt to a team. And for a key position like goalkeeper, I was always fine with Cech being in goal. I thought there would be a moment in time when Cech would come out of the goal, and Cech may come back in. And we got to accept that as well. But what may happen is that Cech might not get that contract for next season, and he will then walk, depending on how Leno does right now. And right now he's doing really well.
Yeah, I mean, I certainly can't fault anything he did today. The one thing I think is interesting is 4 of 14 on long passes. I mean, all season long we've been under 50%, under 40%. This is under 30% on long passes, 24 of 25 short. I kind of expected us to try to play out from the back more even, but it does look like discretion has become the better part of valor with our approach playing out from the back, in that we're not forcing it if it's not there, and we're just kicking it long if we're under dress. Yeah, go ahead.
Elliot, can I say one more thing? I just think,
of course.
I wonder if this just correlates, maybe one for Scott, right? But since we've got a right-footed goalkeeper in, we are attacking massively on the left-hand side. Now, right-footers tend to want to kick to their left. It's just a natural stroke, right? So I think today we did 45% of our attacks on the left and around 30 in the middle and around 22 or 23 on the right-hand side. So we've become very left-sided biased as we exit and come out of our defence. And I'm wondering, for the future, and he tried it already, if we need to move Aubameyang to the right-hand side of our attack, if we are going to play them both together. And the reason why is it's similar to Theo Walcott, Tim. that right-sided player was the finisher, because we were very left-sided buyers. You don't want him part of the build-up. You want him as a finisher. And if you look at Aubameyang's goal, I can't remember, was it the first goal against, I can't remember now.
Forster.
Yes,
the first goal against Forster.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah, it comes from the right channel.
From the left. And
he just slid it in from the right-hand side. And I think he may look at that. And he's not an idiot. He looks at the data just like we do. And if we're building up from that side, and the Aubameyang skill is not build up, but we are creating so many opportunities on the right-hand side to finish, then yes, let's be a left-sided bias team on build-up. But let's make sure when that ball comes across to the right, we've got the main man out there to finish it off. And that'll be interesting to see how he develops that going forward. And maybe someone that's linked to the goalkeeper and how he exits. But maybe we just left side full stop, and it's something to think about going forward.
Well, I think a huge part of it too, certainly in the first team, is that Granit Xhaka is playing on the left side of the midfield too, and wherever he's playing is the side that we build up through. So I'm sure that has something to do with it as well. I mean, Tim, you feeling okay about Leno? Where's your sort of panic meter on the goalkeeper situation?
Yeah, he's looked pretty decent to me. Obviously, jury's still out, small data size and all of that, but he's not anything wrong. I think I like the way. So I remember, I think it was when Isaac Success went through on goal on a Saturday, and I was like, oh, he's really slow up his line. But actually what he does quite well, because he's done it, unfortunately he's had cause to do it several times, but what he does quite well is he doesn't do that almost that Szczesny style, I'm going to come and clean the ball out, and but he's very conscious of what to do with his body. So rather than rushing to the ball, he thinks, right, I'm going to get my stance right. So yeah, I'm going to let you get the shot off, but I'm going to make sure that I'm in exactly the right position when you do it. And that shot Clive referenced, I think that was really what he was doing. He didn't advance out of the goal or anything like that, or try to spook the player. He thought, no, I'm going to get myself where I should be. So almost like letting the shot happen, but just thinking, no, but if it comes in, I'm going to be in the right position to collect it. And he does that, I think, quite well in smothering players. He doesn't really commit, particularly in this day and age where, strikers are so smart about, just nicking the ball and letting the goalkeeper take a leg. And you know how many penalties Arsenal conceded in the last 2 seasons. He seems to take a different view on that, which is something quite different, because I think even Czech is he tends to come out and he wants to attack the ball, whereas Leno is much more, no, I'm not gonna attack the ball, but I'm gonna make myself hard to beat when you get the shot off, which is quite an interesting thing. And actually, I've liked his distribution. I think there's this idea that when people said that he had good distribution, what people thought was that means he's going to be passing it short all the time. And actually what good distribution is for a goalkeeper, it's not even about your percentage, it's about making the right decision. And you said it yourself there, Elliot, like in the first 3 games, it almost looked like Arsenal thought, we're not comfortable and we're being really pressed here, but this is what the manager's told us to do, so we're going to try and do it. Whereas they're much more, the judgment does seem to be better, and Leno's much better at doing that, I think. And I think I said this on the last pod, it's because when the ball's rolling to him, he's already looking around. Whereas with Czech, it's the ball comes to him, it takes him an age to stop it. He has to look down and stare at it and get like a good sniff of the ball, and then he looks up. Whereas Leno, he's already scanning the pitch when the ball's coming back to him. And I'm quite happy for him to go long, because I think he's done that a few times where he's looked up, right, nothing on, get rid of it. And that is the right thing to do sometimes. Like we were saying, or I was saying about the Ozil thing, it's not about doing the same thing all the time. It's about taking the right decision. And I think he takes the right decisions with the ball. Yeah,
discretion is the better part of valor, playing out from the back. I think if the first choice should be to play out from the back when it's there, but what I like is we seem to have the balance better now of not forcing the issue if the situation isn't right for it, and certainly
and that keeps the opposition guessing as well, because if you just play out all the time, then they know exactly what to do.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Look, we're at about the hour mark, and I think considering we just played at Qarabag a million miles from London in a competition that we're going to cruise through the group stage in. We don't need to go too much further. Tim is going to have, I assume, well, let me not speak for you. Let me just ask you. I assume you're going to have a Fulham preview video on the Patreon side?
Yep, that will be up tomorrow.
I think what we're going to do is make that one free for everyone over on Patreon so you can get a sense of what they're like. Laszlo Fulop, who is awesome, is doing the professional graphics for it, and he is hugely appreciated for that and also hugely talented. And Tim obviously has tremendous insight into Arsenal, something that is badly missing on this podcast usually, but he does have it, so that's good. And so that'll be up tomorrow or today, depending when you're listening to this. And I think we'll just go ahead and put it on Patreon, but make it free for everyone so you can get a sense of what those are like and see if they interest you, which they surely will. I guess we just leave it with this real quick, Clive. Without wanting to step on Tim's toes with the content he'll be putting out. Looking ahead to Fulham, I mean, Mkhitaryan was left home, Aubameyang was left home, Lacazette went to Qarabag and played. Iwobi played most of the game. Do you think maybe the manager set himself up for an opportunity to put Aubameyang back at center forward and Mkhitaryan on one of the three forward positions and maybe try something a little different?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised, mate. I think he might go. I think it was notable that Iwobi came off. I think that was a little nod to Sunday. And I think I could see Iwobi, Ozil, and Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang up front. And I think that was no problem for an away game. That makes a lot of sense. I think Fulham were not taking. Fulham been a bit unlucky in some of their games. They've missed a lot of early chances, and I think
16 goals conceded, my man.
Yeah, they've conceded a lot of goals, but I watched a few of them games, and I'm telling you, they've had the first big chances in almost every one. So I'm not saying that we're going to lose, but
when have we ever conceded a big chance to a weak side, other than the 6 we gave Watford, or whatever it was?
We don't give up big chances, do we? Really, that's not our
no, that's not our MO.
So yeah, one interesting thing about tonight is I think all our 5 signings from the summer all played tonight. And it's grand. And we spoke about almost all of them, and let's give a little nod to recruitment. I think maybe Lichtsteiner was average, but I think the other 4 were pretty good, and they've all got decent ceilings. So and then Socrates has been tremendous, and he's getting better and better. And Man United tried to get him before we did, and I'm so glad they didn't, because otherwise they might look stable right now. And but we are looking very stable with him in the team, and football's such a short memory game. I mean, I couldn't imagine an Arsenal team without Koscielny, and none of us barely mention him anymore so quickly how things change, right? So because Socrates has replaced him in our defence. So yeah, fair play to the recruitment for finding these players. So I think they're all excellent.
Well, the great thing about this run, the great thing about a winning run like this is it has given Emery, hopefully, the goodwill and the confidence to feel now that he can start putting out the lineups he wants, start sitting down some of his superstars if they need a break. When he starts the season with 2 losses and against 2 rivals, you have to build up a little credit with the fans, a little credit with the club, a little credit with the players, so that they can see that what you're doing is working, so that they will trust you. And with 8 wins in a row, he hopefully has built that up enough that he now feels he has the latitude to make the choices he wants to make, and it feels more like his team that he can manage his way. And we'll get a sense of that on Sunday, because I think everyone would agree that while these wins are great, it wouldn't hurt to see maybe just a little bit more of a sparkling performance at Fulham on Sunday. But of course, the 3 points are paramount. Tim's on Twitter at Stilberto. Thanks, Tim.
My pleasure as always.
We'll look forward to your video preview coming out shortly. Clive's on Twitter at ClivePAFC. Thanks, Clive.
Thank you very much, my son.
Thanks, Dad. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Give us a 5-star review. And to those of you who have joined us live to listen to this, thank you for doing that. That was kind of fun and different, and so we hope you enjoyed it. But this will still be put out as a regular podcast. And those of you who are listening to it as a regular podcast know that because you're listening to it that way. Duh. In any event, we really do appreciate it. We will come back with a podcast after Fulham on Sunday, and then during the international break, we'll have In the Spotlight Mesut Ozil over on the Patreon side, plus a couple other surprise inclusions as well. So thanks, everybody, for joining us. We'll talk to you after Arsenal 10, Fulham 0.